Hi, and welcome to the 14th episode of SteamLUG Cast. My name is Cheese, and today with me I have John.
Hey everyone.
And DerRidda.
Hello.
And special guest Nicholas Hastings, who has been recently porting Nuclear Dawn to Linux.
Hey guys.
How is everyone this fortnight?
Well, a wee bit sicklish, so forgive me if I give all my diseases to you through the microphone. I do not intend to do so.
It's just hitting cold weather here, so
Oh yeah,
getting a bit of sniffles as well.
it's the time of year, hey.
Mm.
It's spring for me, so the sun is well and truly up now.
Does this mean you scroll the Steam sale from the bottom?
Yes, it does. Dear. So, Nuclear Dawn is now in beta for Linux. It got an update just last night for me, where the main game mode became a bit more stable and playable.
Do you want to take us through what the game is?
Sure, it's a first-person shooter with a real-time strategy element set in a post-apocalyptic game world. On each team there's one commander, which any player is able to opt in to being. That it will randomly choose from those players who want to take that spot. The commander is able to build buildings, such as transport gates to make places where players can spawn, defensive structures such as turrets, power to keep everything up and running, while on the ground, the other players are capturing resource points to pay for all of those things.
Do the players get to communicate with the commander at all, or is that just he has to anticipate where he's needed?
There's a full voice chat, team chat in text, and there's also players can group up into different squads if they so choose, and talk to just their squad members.
Pretty neat.
There's also different player classes, too, for the players on the ground. The Assault class, Stealth, Exo, who's just kind of a tank with a big machine gun, and what's the other one? The Support.
Yeah. So the game's also got leveling for players who play regularly, I guess, or for anyone, but you've got to rack up a couple of hours to get anything. Yes,
players earn overall experience as they play, which helps level up their rank, which persists through games. And what that unlocks is different gizmos, they're called, that they can equip. You can only have one equipped at a time. And they do sometimes give you a benefit, but you have to kind of pick and choose what will benefit you the most at the time for the class you're playing and the current scenario. So no one's really at a huge advantage over another. There's also experience that you can get in-game that lasts for that round that individual players can use to unlock certain upgrades to kind of augment what the commander is also able to do and unlock for the team.
I really like the way that unlocking the siege kits, for example, really changes the pace of the game at that point.
Sure, yeah, the siege kits are almost necessary for taking down enemy structures, which is how you win in the warfare mode, to eventually get to the enemy commander's bunker and destroy it. It's usually very heavily guarded.
So, what sort of stuff did you work on prior to working with InterWave?
I actually came from an IT background rather than programming, but had done programming as a hobby. And one of the hobby projects I work on is called SourceMod, which is a server modification system for almost any multiplayer game on the Source engine. Adds a scripting platform and some other administrative capabilities, and exposes functionality for other people to use to make all sorts of things. And that's how the owner of InterWave met me, was through that project.
Yeah, nice.
So did you go in with InterWave when they were still planning on making Nuclear Dawn a mod, or did they pick you up when they were already trying to go commercial?
I don't know if they ever had a plan for it as a mod. There was a separate team that started it as a mod, but didn't really get anywhere with it. There's barely anything programmed for it. It was mostly just some assets. And this was just as InterWave was getting started, with a separate mod team that they had acquired and started with, that made the mod Stargate: The Last Stand.
Huh.
they had plans for a new mod, which was what Nuclear Dawn turned out to be was kind of a mix of what the original mod team planned Nuclear Dawn to be and what the original InterWave team was going to work on. So it kind of became a hybrid of the two games. And I actually was not involved with it at that point until after Nuclear Dawn was released. A few months after it was released, there was some internal fallout, and there were still some issues with the game. And about half the team ended up leaving, including all the programmers. And that's where I was brought in to help fix things up and keep things going and add some new features and things as well.
So how long ago was that?
That was the beginning of last year, last January.
Yeah, that's an interesting history lesson on Nuclear Dawn, because I personally remember seeing it as one of the first total conversions announced on the Source engine around 2005 even. And I wondered what happened, and then it came back as a commercial game, so that's an interesting story.
Yeah, and InterWave liked the premise, so they bought the rights to it, I believe, and then went forward with it. I think development officially started in 2008 or 2009. It was released in 2011.
So you've previously done work with the Source SDK on Windows. How do you find working with it on Linuxes? Are there any kind of differences that you've noticed? Do you find that there are different tool sets that you need to make use of? How's that experience? Are there any differences, I guess?
Well, the actual SDK tools are unfortunately Windows only, partially because they rely heavily on MFC components and some other Windows-specific toolkits. As far as the actual code itself, yeah, it's definitely easier for me, at least, working on Windows, because Visual Studio is a great development environment. I haven't seen anything to quite match it on Linux, but Linux does have some nice other tools available, particularly for debugging. GDB is not bad at all. Valgrind has helped me catch more than a few issues already.
Nice.
I think probably the closest thing to that on Windows is Application Verifier, which seems to be hit and miss.
Yeah, we'd encountered the kind of lack of Source SDK tools when working on a mod for the 7-day first-person shooter challenge earlier this year. We kind of, I think we nearly might have convinced people to do a port of a couple of the supporting tools like Studio MDL.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of the command line tools are probably pretty easy to port, and I think someone actually did that for the 2013 SDK, even though it hasn't been officially accepted upstream yet.
Yeah, there were a couple of tools, I think map compilation tools that had been ported.
Mm.
Yeah, VViz and DRAD.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll be making their way in soon, if they haven't already. I haven't been keeping up on it. So you also worked on Dark Matter?
Yeah, while I was still working on doing the post-release updates and things to Nuclear Dawn, InterWave had brought on a couple more people and started working on Dark Matter. And they ran with that as developed from, I think, April of last year up through, I'd say, July of this year. And I was brought on about halfway through that, making the transition to that team as Nuclear Dawn sort of died down a bit in the community. And
what sort of bits and pieces did you work on Dark Matter?
We all did a little bit of everything. The general manager at InterWave also came up with the whole design for the game and also a little bit of programming on it. And then myself and one other programmer did the rest of the bits on it. But the game's on the Unity engine, which is very nice to make things quickly on, but to do any sort of advanced work, like with sound and input and things like that, those subsystems, you have to do a lot of it on your own.
Yeah, I've had a few developers talking about input specifically being a little bit bare bones.
The input's horrible on it. There's no facility built in for players to even set their keybinds. It's all hard-coded, and then you work backwards from there to add the programmability to it.
Yuck.
But those are two things that I worked on: input, the sound, the whole GUI system. We used a basic sprite toolkit, but beyond that, I rigged the whole thing up, the options and everything. I also did a bit of gameplay code and a lot of tracking down bugs, resolving those in all sorts of the facets of the game.
Do you feel that the components that you said Unity lacks makes it for a far harder cross-platform toolkit than you would like?
Yes and no. I think when you implement a lot of that yourself, it's not so bad. In cases where studios go for third-party libraries, if any of those involve native code, a lot of them only provide Windows and Mac binaries.
Yeah, we've spoken quite a bit about third-party audio libraries on this cast, so...
Yeah, and unfortunately we didn't really have that issue. The only third-party libraries we were using were, that had any native code, were Steam and SDL, which is very common in Linux games already because it, cross-platform games, because it abstracts audio and video and input, and we were actually using it just for input.
Nice.
Made it nice so that players could have a good default key bindings that they want to play with gamepad instead of having, this action is bound to button 1, this action is bound to button 3. You just have your standard A, B, X, Y, up, down, left, right. It abstracts all of that.
So, how do you feel about Dark Matter in retrospect now that it's released? Because it has been a bit topical since it came out.
Yeah, unfortunately, InterWave as a studio fell on hard times monetarily, and there's some of that involves some of the other companies owned by InterWave's parent company, and I can't really go into details on that, but
For sure.
Short version, InterWave ran out of money, and we were the game did get cut short in a sense, but we did our best to polish what we had in the remaining time that was allotted to us.
It must have been a tough call.
I think it was tough on everyone. I mean, no one wanted to see it get cut short. No one wanted to see all the backlash that came from it with the way it was later marketed, and then many people just weren't happy about the situation at all, myself included. I actually officially parted ways with InterWave at the end of July, which is when development had originally finished. They later brought me back on a contract basis to fix some things with Dark Matter, issues that didn't present themselves until it got into customers' hands, and just some other things they wanted to resolve to kind of placate people a bit. I
played through, I think within the last fortnight it was, from start to finish with the new ending, and it's almost I don't really know how to describe it. I kind of want to say it's depressing because I can see so much potential in what's there, but it just feels like it didn't get quite enough attention.
Yeah. Very unfortunate situation. Not to jump backwards a bit, but I do want to say, to go back to the previous point, that Unity in general is very nice for Linux games. And that whole part, we talked about the native libraries and things, that can be an issue. But aside from that, we had almost no issue whatsoever with it running on Linux, just out of the box.
It's pretty promising for developers who don't have much experience to be able to sit down and just, publish something without having to worry about a lot of, nuanced tracking to get this, bug tracking to get their stuff done, or bug debugging to get their stuff running.
Exactly, especially when it's gaining a lot of popularity now.
But that also leads to the potential danger of people not thoroughly testing their stuff. What sort of distros did you guys target when testing both Dark Matter and Nuclear Dawn on Linux?
I was primarily just using Ubuntu, the latest LTS version, 12.04, I believe, and we had a couple of testers on some other distributions. I don't remember specifically what ones they were using. I mean, the other thing is when you do test on one, things do tend to mostly work on others. I mean, you could be missing some dependencies here and there. I think one common thing that comes up is a user with a 64-bit system might not have 32-bit libraries installed. If your game isn't native 64-bit, then obviously they'll run into an issue there. That's one thing.
And that at least is an easy fix.
We did run into with native libraries. There was no native 64-bit version for Linux of the Steam library at the time. There is now.
Yeah, that came in just the last week or two.
But so only our DRM free build supports 64-bit natively, which is available. I don't remember which store it was sold on, but the Steam version didn't include that.
I think it was on GOG, but I didn't think that they distributed the Linux version.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure on that. I wasn't involved in distribution, or at least where it was distributed.
So what sort of What sort of surprises did you encounter while working on or what surprises are you encountering while working on the Nuclear Dawn port? Has it been a mostly pleasant experience or a slightly hair-pulling experience?
Well, to get started, Source is absolutely huge.
Yes.
The engine itself, it's huge, and we had a lot of our own customizations, even down to the engine level, not just in the game code, which is exposed via the SDK. And so, going back, merging in all of Valve's changes and things to the engine, it was quite a task, and I was expecting a lot of issues after that. Things that accidentally got reverted when merging, or missing things. Overall, it worked out of the box almost instantly after the merging getting compiled. But yeah, there have definitely been no shortage of other little issues after getting it running. It seems the biggest is dealing with case-sensitive file system by default, which you almost never encounter on Windows, and it's rare on Mac because it's optional but default to be case insensitive.
Yeah.
And even our build slaves for one of the our Linux server build, it builds off of a Windows share that the code is on, so it didn't have those issues.
Just going to say that's inviting some trouble there.
Yeah. But no, and that's one thing that made it easier. A lot of the code was already running on Linux in our server builds, and a lot of those issues with that would present themselves at runtime were already resolved. But the Linux client obviously brings in a lot more. You have all of the graphical related libraries, you have the extra client code, the GUI, everything else that runs on there to deal with.
And what do you think is likely to happen in the future for InterWave? Do you think we're likely to see another game? Do you think things are going to sort of peter out a bit more?
I wouldn't count on it, on anything else happening there, but you never know.
Well, keep our fingers crossed. I mean, I kind of, shortness aside, I enjoyed Dark Matter, and the gameplay was kind of fun, and Nuclear Dawn is set to be pretty well received on Linux, I hope.
A lot of people have been jumping in out of nowhere to help with the beta, test things. It's refreshing.
A lot of people have been waiting for it for some time.
And that's one thing, even after most of the InterWave staff was like, oh, that's one thing, they'd promised this to happen, and we weren't able to do the port on our own. We just didn't have the resources to do it without having the updated version of the source engine already available to us, which we were waiting on for months. But once they eventually got that, they contracted with me to make sure it happened, and it's getting there. It's not there yet, but at least it's in beta. It's mostly working, and I'll get it the rest of the way.
Fantastic. It does feel playable at the moment. It's not too bad. I was talking to someone earlier today who said that they felt that the only bugs that they'd noticed in the beta were sort of Windows only, aside from resolution changing crash and
right.
A couple other tiny bits and pieces.
One other thing I ran into when porting it is found a lot of existing bugs that just happened by luck because of different memory allocation or this or that to not be issues on other platforms, but then reared their head on the Linux version. So fixing some of those things will help stability of the other platforms as well, hopefully. Things that were maybe intermittent issues on Windows, but were always occurring on the Linux build that are now fixed. That'll be nice for everyone as well.
And I have one question about Source Engine. Would you, in all honesty, recommend it to any indie developer for licensing?
No. I wouldn't. I take that back. If you're doing a multiplayer game and it kind of fits into the mold of games that have already been built on the source engine, it's not bad. But its workflow leaves a lot to be desired for a compilation, and from what I hear, for mappers and modelers and that other sort of people who contribute as well. It's just a lot of extra work, a lot of people seem to think, compared to something like Unity, which doesn't have the most robust network support and isn't necessarily geared toward, say, a first-person shooter. But aside from that, is extremely easy to work with.
And compared to UDK, for example?
If you've played around with that.
I haven't used UDK. I've heard a lot of great things about it. I, however, cannot speak from experience.
It'd be interesting to see how Source 2, when it hits, how its developer tools are and how easy to work with it is for people, whether that's something that will be focused on a bit more, because unlike Unity, it's not really pitched heavily at being a that kind of pick up and run with it engine. I guess the Source SDK is, but the engine itself, if you're licensing it for full source access, probably isn't.
Yeah, if people remember Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, I think this game was 90% of its problems were source engine related and how they had to deal with that, and the other 10% were not being allowed to finish the game.
Yeah, they were one of the first third-party source games, I believe. That was very shortly after Half-Life 2 came out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And the engine's come a long way since then. I mean, obviously with the cross-platform support. I mean, they've also cleaned up a lot of crap, to put it bluntly, and it's a lot nicer than it was, at least code-wise.
So, was there anything else you'd like to chat about or touch on before we move on to the main part of the cast?
One other thing I'd like to mention, which isn't related to InterWave, is there's a
That's cool.
a mod that I helped out with a little bit in the past that is just now, they got greenlit about a month ago and are about to start testing their Linux client. It's a Source SDK 2013 mod. Keep an eye out for Fistful of Frags.
I remember that.
The author has still been going with it after years, doing updates as he can, and said he's
Nice.
almost now finishing the port to the newer engine. Linux support will be available very soon for beta testing, and it's a fun game. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, it does look pretty neat. So what sort of stuff did you help out with on that?
Actually, I originally ported their dedicated server to Linux. They didn't. The author wasn't familiar with Linux much at all, and there was quite a bit of platform-specific code that snuck in to the mod. And I helped get an environment set up and abstract out the platform-specific bits and get that going so people could run their servers on Linux. And there are also various other bugs I helped fix. But I didn't contribute to it for that long, just time constraints with other projects I'd been working on.
It looks great. So we might conclude the interviewee portion of the cast there. As always, you're more than welcome to hang around and comment on anything that we cover as we go through the rest of our things to touch on. And then after we're done, we're going to hop into Space Pope's Nuclear Dawn server and play some of the Linux beta there. So, past events. We had that Dota 2 event recently that you joined in a bit late on, John.
Yeah, I think I was the only one, at least talking, that turned up. We had a couple of rounds of Diatide, and that's certainly an interesting game mode compared to the normal game. I don't know if any of you two have played it.
I haven't, no.
I've definitely played some.
Not Diatide.
But they changed the game in that when you kill creeps, they drop candy, and you're meant to collect this candy. But the other heroes can kill you and steal your candy, and each team's got to collect the most and deposit it in their little, what do they call them, candy hampers or something. And then Roshan comes and chases everyone around the map, expecting free candy, or he'll kill you. It's very odd. And once one team's won after the time limit, it's basically a mad rush to go. Everyone joins in killing Roshan, and he keeps leveling up each time you kill him, and it's a bit silly, but all in good fun.
Sounds almost like the same style of change as the kind of Halloween modes, the recent ones that have gone into TF2.
I haven't honestly played the new modes in TF2.
They bring in a sort of big boss character.
Sorry, you meant Halloween, not the man stuff. Or I'll shut up. Okay. I think it actually feels like it changes the game more.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you're not buying you're not buying items really. You're behaving completely differently to the normal game.
I was meaning like in the Halloween mode, you've got like Marasmus or the big eye thing that I can't remember the name of, which kind of takes everybody out of the fight each other mode, and you kind of go off to fight the boss mode and do that sort of stuff.
And then the most recent change, you get spells to cast on people. I thought that was quite a neat.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Neat turn of events.
But yeah, so that seemed to have even though people weren't talking that much, seemed to have an okay turnout.
Yeah, it went okay. I mean, it's kind of problematic when you're playing on just a 5-person team. Some people are reluctant to join because they obviously don't want to be on the second team or the third team. So numbers tend to be fairly low with Dota. It's also because the games can be fairly lengthy, and I think people are a bit worried about committing time to it. But anyway, we had a painkiller event with the porter, the Linux porter. Lesek joined us for about half an hour. I think we were just having issues because we don't have any dedicated servers on the platform yet. All of the players were trying to host them on our local connections, and the pings were a little high for that sort of fast-paced game. But yeah, really good fun. We got quite a few screen grabs of impaling each other with massive stakes.
Yeah, a couple of people that I talked to who went to it said they thought it was really fun. Lesek sounded like he was a bit embarrassed by a couple of the bugs that people had encountered, but overall everything seemed pretty positive, and we'll probably.
Yeah, he did sound a little bothered on Twitter, but I think he was probably noticing the bugs more than we were, just because I think he's probably quite intimate, has quite intimate knowledge of the game, and we don't.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah. And Team 17 celebrated Worm's 18th birthday earlier this month, so we had an impromptu birthday event. Played, I don't know, how many rounds did we play, DerRidda?
2 bloody many, I think.
Oh, we had heaps of fun.
Yeah, we played a lot of Worms, and it was really fun. The best thing, as always, is in Worms when you try to get that sophisticated shot and manage to kill half your own Worms.
I love that. And we also had our first Monaco event earlier this month as well, which was interesting. We didn't have a huge turnout. I think we only had 4 people, which worked out well because it's 4-player co-op. But yeah, we played through a bunch of levels there, and that was a bit of fun. Introducing people to the game for the first time and
Nice.
showing them how to not alert people, and we all died lots. It was good. I like how hectic that game can get. It's kind of as long as you've got one person who's fairly able to stay alive and hide until everything calms down, everyone else can be crazy and kill themselves, and things can get really manic and stuff. But then as you skill up, and you become more familiar with the game's nuances, it's still challenging and fun.
I think that game frustrates me a little because I don't know if it's better later on, but my characters can only carry smoke or shotgun, and I'm pretty lousy at stealth. So whenever I get in a situation, I can only sort of temporarily hide myself, and then that's it. I'm, dead.
It really is first and foremost a stealth game, though, I think.
Yeah. So I think I'll play that more at our next event, because I managed to miss that Monaco one, sadly.
Yeah, we'll do another one soon. But there are other weapons and other tools that you can get access to, and some characters which have less stealth-oriented abilities, which is cool. On the upcoming events front, we've got Dota 2 event scheduled for during the week.
Next Thursday, I think it was.
We also have Team Fortress 2 MVM, which we're going to have a server just playing the new maps. Oh yeah, and I forgot, we've got Hammerwatch coming up tomorrow. You've had a bit of a play around with that, DerRidda. How do you find it?
Yeah, it reminds me of Gauntlet. That was Gauntlet. The Red Warrior needs food badly. It's really retro. You run through a dungeon, there are monster spawners all over the place, and it's quite hard. It starts off easily, but then you realize you only have so much health, and 2 hits kill you, and then you die and lose a life. And if all your lives are gone, it seems like the game is over, completely over. So it's a bit brutal in that respect, but it's a lot of fun. Just good old-fashioned arcade fun. Run through a dungeon, kill monsters, collect gold coins, don't die.
Neat.
It is pretty neat. I've only had a couple minutes play around, and health did seem pretty scarce, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's really good for co-op, and it's a retro fix which I just need once in a while.
Yeah. We also have Forced coming up, which is another 4-player co-op game.
I can't say I've played this, so I can't jump in.
I've been playing with a friend of mine, just the two of us, and it's pretty neat. It's got a kind of Diablo type feel to it. It's this kind of action RPG sort of thing, but it's mission based and slightly puzzle oriented, which makes it a really different kind of proposition. So yeah, that's lots of fun, and obviously on Linux.
So is that co-op multiplayer then, or?
Yeah, only co-op.
Okay. And the last event, Secret of the Magic Crystals. This was in the Steam sale, so I've picked it up. I urge you to as well if you're going to join us. And I think hopefully Swordfisher will take us through, tending your horses and
Brushing.
and getting the most out of the game. Yes, brushing.
And that's another midweek event, that one is, I think. So moving on to Steam and Valve news. You want to run us through some of the recent client updates, John?
Compared to the last time, there's barely any to talk about. The overlay got a bit of a refresh, so some games that weren't correctly set in Gamma, when you open the overlay and tab out, it will correctly restore your desktop Gamma settings, which is a nice change. There have been a couple of behind-the-scenes changes. Parental control is being added into the client as we speak, mostly for SteamOS, but it's also being added to the client side of it, so your desktop is far more friendly for your children if you have any. And that's about it for client updates. Steam's added a new section to every game called Steam Reviews.
This expands the recommendations functionality that was in there previously.
Yep, and they're trying to encourage people to leave decent reviews, and ones where you're not obviously deceiving people. So they show your playtime next to the review, so people can correctly gauge whether you've just played it for 2 minutes and just want to be mean, or you've played it for thousands of hours and your opinion, you probably really love that game anyway.
Yeah, I think that's reviews done right, because first, as you said, they can see all this information. You can only review stuff you have on your Steam account. And most important of all, you can pretty much only recommend or do not recommend. You do not give any rating with X out of 10 points or whatever. So people actually have to read to get the value out of the review, which is what these things should be about, but somehow have stopped to be about.
Yeah. And you've got the ability to agree or disagree with a review as well. So reviews that get that kind of community rating there as well, in the form of I think it's like a rate up and rate down button.
Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Also recently, Anna Sweet from Valve mentioned in an brief IGN interview that there weren't likely to be SteamOS or Steam Machine exclusive games, as that would go against the philosophy that Valve are aiming for.
Yep, and this echoes Doug Lombardi's statements when they had the press over to unveil Steam Machines a month and a half ago, I think it was, because The Verge asked the same question.
Well, they did. I hadn't actually spotted that, so I thought it was a bit more newsworthy than it is.
Oh no, it's just people are going to continuously ask this question until Half-Life 3's here.
Yeah, I guess. But it's really positive that because it really would be an arbitrary limitation on that platform.
Now, myself and Cheese got in I wouldn't say an argument, a nice conversation on Twitter about this. I think the philosophical side of it is very important. But if they're trying to at least encourage people to pick up their console, then saying that there's never going to be any compelling need to get this is detrimental, is all I'll say.
I don't know. I look at the exclusive the culture of exclusives that are kicking around at the moment, and all I see is barriers to competition. I've had people tell me, why would I buy this console if it didn't have exclusives? I'm like, well, if that's the only justification it has for existing, why should it exist at all?
I think it's a barrier to competition if it's a third-party exclusive. Something like Rise, where Crytek have been developing this game, and then they've been and Titanfall, they've been given money to prevent it appearing on a different system. But when it's something like first party, which Valve is in this case, they're developing their own software. So is it a hindrance to competition if it's their own project?
It would be an open-handed slap in the face of every existing Steam user on other platforms to deny them a game. So why would they do that? They could never take the flame they would get for that. Righteous and justified flame. Because it's absolutely pointless. And the point about exclusives is what I think marketing propaganda ministers have done a lot of work on that front, because people somehow think that an exclusive is value added to that system. While in fact it is value removed from every other system and holding that thing you want hostage, so you go there. I don't like exclusives.
Yeah, exclusives make me immediately disinterested in a game.
I don't understand how you can hold a game hostage.
We give people money to stop it from appearing places.
But again, that's third-party exclusives. First-party, the main developer is paying for it to be created, so you wouldn't have the game in the first place. Notice they say it's not going to be exclusive to the machine. They don't mention it won't be timed exclusive to the machine or anything. I know that's obviously finding fault in what they said. They could easily make it a few weeks. I mean, not that it's going to compel anyone to buy these machines, but I think from a PR point of view, it's probably easier if they don't say anything and still have it come to all their platforms at the same time than come out and say that it definitely will never be exclusive.
They could still ignore the consoles, all of them, and it wouldn't be exclusive, but it would be exclusive to their platform. But they can never possibly ignore their other Steam platforms, like Windows and Mac.
Valve kind of do ignore the consoles mostly. I mean, they do bring ports over, but I think they've been burned by Microsoft with Left 4 Dead because they have content exclusive, like Payday. Payday can't have the Left 4 Dead level on the PS3 copy because Microsoft's got the exclusive for that. Well, just for the Left 4 Dead themed console content, which is ridiculous. But But Valve, again, they were going to launch CSGO on PS3 and it's not come to Europe at all. And you think, well, why are all these complications getting in the way of them trying to get their games onto platforms? But anyway, that's let's move on. Another piece of news this last fortnight, iBuyPower have come out and said, here's our Steambox prototype. So this is the second, do we want to say confirmed partner, or how do we describe these companies?
Gee, I don't know.
Who's the first confirmed partner, I want to know?
Well, they're not confirmed. They came out and said, here's Piston, a Steam machine, but they've said it's going to run Windows, so it's, not a Steam machine.
But we know that's not confirmed. Valve went out and said, no, they are not a Steam machine. This is not what we had in mind.
Exactly, but you could still run SteamOS on it, and they're trying to angle for that. So are they the first, or do we just ignore them? So is this the first non-Valve hardware prototype for a SteamOS box?
I would say so.
It's got the Steam logo etched into the top.
I saw that. Now, there are two models. We don't really know much about either. I think the difference is the colour in the light. One's Gordon, one's Freeman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, big differences. They both ship with AMD Radeons. Was it the 270 or the 290 or something?
Yes, the 270.
Right. And it's $500, which puts it at the Xbox One price. Now, quite a few people have been talking about the teraflop difference between the two. And it is, I know it's a bit silly. It is more powerful than the Xbox One in strict terms of gigaflops, but we'll have to see what people can get out of it, because it's an AMD chipset.
Yeah, the AMD part is what troubles me the most. Because unless they have a magic driver hidden up their sleeves they release when the Steam machines release, this will be a problematic system. It will mean some games will run at poor performance, others will just give you a black screen. This is Steam machines with AMD at the moment make me skeptical.
Are risky. Yes.
Are broken by design at the moment with the drivers as they are now. They might have a super awesome driver by early next year, but right now they are broken.
I'm just worried in case it puts people off. That's all. Right, so let's move on. I don't think we're going very far into that. So, our gaming. What have you been playing, DerRidda?
All the Dota, lots of it.
Any Dietide at all, or just vanilla?
No, I somehow don't. I want to play it for the competitive mode. I have ignored all of that.
Fair enough.
And as I said, I've played some Hammerwatch with my nephew and a friend. My nephew ate all my lives, and then I was on my own. That was nice of him. And Cheese and I and some other people, we have had a lot of pickup games just outside of events during the last couple of weeks, and we're playing lots of them.
Yeah, it seems like every day.
Almost. Yeah, that was about it. What have you been playing, John?
Dota, as we've mentioned there. Some TF2. I've been playing around with controllers, just ones that I've got here. The Painkiller event, and apart from that, quite a lot of humble QA testing, so not much I can talk about publicly, sadly. Also, I just got a DualShock 4. I've been talking about it for quite a while, saying I'm going to get one, and I did. I know. It's a lovely piece of hardware for a PC controller. I've been probing it today to get the HOD raw output from it to see if I can get the touchpad supported, and we'll see how that goes. What about you, Cheese?
I actually seem to have been playing a bit lately. As I said, I've been playing Forced with a friend of mine. Been playing some of the new Assault Android Cactus stuff, which we'll probably mention later. I've finally gotten a chance to get into Snapshot and try and play through that. I'm surprised at how big it is. It's nicely challenging as well, which is really cool. I really love the art assets in it. As DerRidda said, been playing some Worms Reloaded. Been playing the Nuclear Dawn Linux beta. Managed to play some more space-based DF9 and found my first cheesiness. I'm in the game and I died and it was quite sad.
I saw that.
I was single-handedly holding the station together. I quit when I died, and then the next time I fired it up, within minutes, all but 2 people on the station were dead and everything was on fire.
You let everyone down, Cheese.
I did. It's funny because I looked at him. Any time I saw some kind of crisis going on, he'd run into the room and deal with it, and then run off and do other stuff. And I thought, he's awesome. And then at some point I looked at him and it said he was starving and that he hadn't had any sleep and he didn't have any friends and stuff. And I thought, oh shit, I better take him off his duties and let him rest. And I did that. And the first thing he did was go and put out a fire, and then he went to bed and died.
I'm so amused how you fail to see the irony.
Yeah.
With your in-game cheesiness just overcommitting to everything, lacking sleep, and having trouble because of it, and the real guy in front of the computer is not reflecting on his life.
It's
just
funny.
saying.
Mim said the same thing.
Wow.
See? I know what's on.
Getting the knife.
Mim knows
It's
it.
funny.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I've also been playing some TF2, played some Portal 2. I ran through with the last 2 characters that I hadn't played yet in the cave, which was a bit of fun. Played some Super Frog HD. I finished Glare, which is a neat platformer from Team Phobic. It's pretty neat. I'll probably talk about that another time. Played some Monaco. I started playing Fez as well, which was surprisingly cute. I hadn't really paid much attention to it, but
it is, isn't it? Gomez is lovely.
Yeah, it's adorable. I finished Dark Matter, as I mentioned earlier. I picked up Air Conflict specific carriers, and had a bit of a play with that. And I managed to have the opportunity to test some upcoming stuff in Gear Up, which includes Linux support, so keep an eye on the horizon for that. And you, Nicholas, what have you been playing lately?
Lots and lots of Dota.
Nice.
Sums it all up.
It's a free time killer, but it's worth it.
Actually, speaking of Dota, did anyone see any of the MLG matches this last week?
I went to MLG.
Oh,
It
nice.
was hosted about 2 hours away from here.
So, not only watching Dota matches, did you watch CSGO at all there?
No, I caught glimpses, but I was mainly watching the Dota matches.
Nice. I didn't hear about it till late in the day, so I saw about 3 matches live, and that was it. Over. A bit sad,
I
really.
briefly watched some CSGO on DreamHack yesterday. That was entertaining.
So, moving on to general news. We were just discussing before the cast the Black Mesa announcement that they're moving to an engine that they are or aren't talking about, making some big changes to the game to move it to a commercial title.
I look forward to this coming out so much.
So in the announcement on their forums, they mentioned that they weren't ready to talk about what engine they were going to be migrating to. In the Steam community announcement, it seems like they're talking about Source. It's unclear what version of Source they're talking about.
I think everyone thinks it's Source 2.
People are speculating Source 2, yeah. But it could just be 2013 and we'll get Linux support and all the other nice updates with that. I don't know. Is it 2013 already?
Yeah, the one on GitHub's 13, I think.
It is.
Black Mesa?
Black Mesa was on the 2007 one.
Yeah, the older one.
Yeah, okay. No, that's what I meant.
Oh, okay. Now I understand you.
I'm just speaking gibberish, you know. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Hero U, crowdfunded sort of point-and-click adventure game type thing, or point-and-click RPG type thing, made by the creators of Quest for Glory, is about to have a demo released. There's a trailer up and about at the moment, and a recent Kickstarter updater was talking about how they're looking at changing some of the visual style and migrating to 3D assets for the player characters, which should make a bit of a difference.
Yes, can somebody explain that game to me? I briefly looked at that video, but is it an adventure? Is it a point-and-click roguelike? Because it seems like the guy got caught and ended up in prison and the game ended. Somebody explain it, please.
So yeah, in the demo, you have the opportunity. You're meant to be a thief in training, and you've got a building that or a room that you're burglaring to or burglarizing to pass a test. You got to find a particular item and move on. It's mostly sort of point-and-click adventure, but you have stats that you will be able to allocate experience points into. So from that aspect, it's kind of got the RPG element. It's kind of, imagine a point-and-click version of some of the old Sierra RPG adventure games.
And what happens when you get caught?
The demo ends. You don't have to get caught though. You can find the thing you meant to find and escape out the window in the demo. The Kickstarter backers have had access to it for a little while. I assume that when you get caught, that you get a game over screen, which normally have a nice little poem with them, and you get to restore, restart, or retry, which is a bit of a kind of staple of Sierra adventure games. But anyway, Hammer Fight is now up on Steam for Linux.
Yes, Iculus tweeted about this, so you're free to go download it. Another game that got announced officially, we've mentioned it before, Joe Danger and the sequel Joe Danger 2 are coming to Linux and Mac very soon. I played this on PS3 quite a few years ago. It's a side-scrolling stunt bike platform puzzler, I guess you'd call it. It's got a really nice style.
Sort of like Action Supercross type thing, or X-Moto?
Yeah, kind of like that. I don't know if they've brought the creative sort of level editing over to the port as well, but if so, that hopefully should have some really good work support in as well. And I quite recommend that.
Looks like it's got TF2 characters in it.
Yes, and apparently Linus is a character as well that you might be able to play.
Huh.
Which is going to be absolutely absurd, but fun.
That sounds bizarre. Yeah, look forward to checking it out.
Yeah. So let's look at SteamDB potential leaks, or just peekings into the behind the scenes. Horde has been spotted That's a... How would you describe it? It's a sort of a board...
Sort of a strategy thing.
Yeah. You play a dragon, you fly around torching villages and windmills to collect gold, and then you get various AI opponents trying to either rob from you, or you get knights trying to steal princesses back, and you behave like a dragon, basically. That's another game I played on a different platform quite a while ago, but that's really good fun.
I think I picked that up in a Indie Royale bundle a little while back and played some in wine.
Yes, I've got that on Steam as well, but that came in Valentine's, I think it was, Indie Royale Valentine's.
Is that based on a board game? Because it looks like one from the screenshots.
It does feel like it, but I don't honestly know. Sorry.
XCOM Enemy Unknown has also been spotted as having unused Linux depots.
Yes, ooh, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
Yeah, the depot sort of got hints a while ago, and then they added the launch configs this last week. So
yeah, nice.
Yep, that was a good reason to buy it in the sale.
It's still on.
Yep.
If you're listening live, you can still grab it.
I've never really got into XCOM. I might, but the big exciting thing for me is potential for Access to become a Linux supporting developer. That's pretty exciting.
Yes. And they're sort of at the right size to be on the edge of, likely convinced to stick it out. I played the first XCOM when it came out ages ago, and I don't know, it didn't sit well with me. But I think as I've aged, I've got more into that sort of genre of being happier, being more strategic and tactical rather than sort of running straight in. And
I only ever played the free clone UFO Alien Invasion, but I kind of sucked at it because it just dumped you in the game and said, "You played XCOM back in the 90s, didn't you? You know how this works." And I said, "Nope," and quit the game.
Yeah, that was about my experience of that as well. I'm sure it's a good game, but yeah, it totally doesn't have any kind of tailored learning curve.
Seems like the chat agrees.
Recently launched was the Linux Game Awards, which is a joint effort by a bunch of Linux game news sites, including Gaming on Linux, the Linux Game Database, Root Gamer, Free Gamer, Penguin Gamers, Portable Linux Games, who I haven't heard of before. And the idea is that they will monthly come up with a short list of interesting Linux games, which the community can then vote on, and the winning title will get promotion on those sites as in the form of ad banners and things. So it's meant to be a way of kind of recognizing notable Linux projects. The first set of games has been selected by Free Gamer, and I can't remember what the titles are. I'll just find it. Yeah, so there's Zero AD, the Flare RPG, Hedge Wars, Megaglest, Pioneer, which looks to be a sort of privateer or elite clone, Sumatrans, Stunt Rally, Super Tux Kart, the Dark Mod, and 0K.
On that note, has anyone actually played Dark Mod a lot? I mean, geez, you are a Thief fan, so I think you're obligated.
I've played nowhere near as much as I would like to. I actually haven't downloaded it since it went standalone, but I do really like it and would heavily recommend the Dark Mod. It's pretty sweet. It does go beyond Thief's gameplay, and it does stand on its own as its own thing. If you go in wanting just vanilla Thief gameplay, that's probably not what you're going to get, and you're going to find it a bit frustrating. But it certainly goes a lot deeper into some mechanics than Thief did. Particularly lockpicking is really exciting for me, because I like picking locks apparently. Yeah, you guys got any thoughts on Linux Game Awards?
Not really yet. I will keep an eye on it and see how this turns out.
Personally, I'd kind of rather see something where the community selected the short list of games as opposed to one of the partners. But remains to be seen how it pans out and how well it works. Excuse me. But yeah, either way, prominence and recognition for Linux games is always good. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Assault Android Cactus has had its third big Steam Early Access update, which includes a new unlockable character called Aubergine, and she has a this kind of remote control helicopter melee weapon thing, which is, we talked when Sanatan was here with us, we talked a little bit about how all the characters were really diverse, but this totally blows that out into a new dimension. It's really crazy different type of gameplay. So Battle Worlds Chronos, Steam keys are now available for Kickstarter backers and people who purchased from the official site, but it seems that that's limited to people who purchased it before release. I haven't quite got confirmation on whether people who purchased it from the King Art Games website after release are getting Steam keys or not, but so sort of be aware of that before you go and throw your money at them if Steam keys are what you're after. But I had a chance to start playing through the campaign on that last night, which has been fun so far. The release version seems a little bit more polished than the beta was.
One should hope so.
Well, it's hard to know these days. I mean, it's not like beta is really anything more than an arbitrary term that people use for pre-release stages. But particularly with crowdfunding stuff where people are getting access to pre-release builds, it does seem like generally you find that betas are a little bit more polished when they're being given out to people rather than just internal testers. I think the Trine 2 beta, from memory, didn't change at all between a release and the beta becoming available.
You mean the general beta or the Linux specific?
Of Trine 2, the general beta.
Okay.
So we had some great news today from the Euro Truck Simulator 2 developers, SCS. They've announced some Blender tools to help users import truck and map objects into the game, and I think this is a really good start of encouraging Blender devs to get involved in modding games.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Moving on to crowdfunding news. As a second Mesa driver improvement by the guy that ran the previous one, and I was.
Do you remember what he did last time? I, for the life of me, can't remember, even though we mentioned it.
Let me double check. It was.
I think it was a debugging extension he implemented.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, GLKHR debug.
Okay, so that's a Chronos extension. And what's he trying to work on now?
GLARB, arrays of arrays.
Okay. I assume that would speed up some games then, since they can dump more pretty quickly onto the hardware.
But it's good to see that if this becomes an ongoing thing. Wow, he's more than. He's coming close to doubling his funding goal. So he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by how well he's getting funded compared to some games that pretty fail Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's interesting. Indiegogo does seem to not attract as many people as Kickstarter does. It's really nice to see him getting the attention that he needs there.
But speaking of failure, we have the sad news that the Red Baron remake is no longer being sought after for crowdfunding. I don't know if they're going to get a different agreement from a publisher like Devolver did.
Well, it sounds like they're not ready to give up on the game as a whole, but they're the crowdfunding campaign didn't make it.
Yeah, it did pretty poorly actually, which surprised me. I thought there'd be far more nostalgia in it.
Yeah, I was quite surprised. And also currently running is the Wings Remastered Edition campaign, which is a second one that they're running, and they're probably going to make their goal, but it doesn't look like they're going to make their Linux stretch goal. But it's interesting to see that the Wings one did better for some reason. For anybody who's not aware, these two games are of similar sort of vintage and cover similar sort of content matter. Although Wings has more varied gameplay, I guess. But I hope that they'll come back. I was kind of looking forward to getting a chance to to play Red Baron on a more modern computer. So, on that note, was there anything else that we wanted to cover?
No, I think we went okay.
Sweet.
Any last thoughts, Psychonic?
He's died.
That's okay. You, DerRidda, anything to mention? That's okay.
I'm sorry about that. I joined the event a little early, and my attention
That's cool.
got away.
Yeah, we're just doing the sum up, so, closing thoughts and everything.
No, I think we're done here. It was a bit of a slow news week because of American Turkey Killing Day.
I don't understand how that shuts down news for a week. I mean, surely it only runs for a day, yeah?
I don't know, they are not even broadcasting TV shows in that week. I mean, that and Super Bowl just shuts down the US, as far as
That's
I
true.
figured out. Nothing else is happening. Thanksgiving because everybody's traveling everywhere, and Super Bowl because everybody's traveling everywhere to watch the Super Bowl.
Oh. Well, in that case, we'll finish up, and everyone can move across to the event channel, and we'll hop in and play some Nuclear Dawn.
Yep. Thanks for listening, guys. You're welcome to leave feedback. cast@steamlug.org.
And we're recording this on Saturday, November the 30th, for me, here in Australia.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.